Hello everyone, how's it going? This is 8-Bit Flashback, and today I'm reviewing the A8 Retro Arcade Gaming Console with 3,000 built-in games, including arcade games, Famicom, Game Boy Advance, Mega Drive, and much more. So let's take a closer look. So this has a 4.3 TFT screen with 480 by 272 resolution and has a 64-bit operating system with support for arcade games from CPS-1, CPS-2, and Neogeo. But for the Neogeo games, they will have to be converted to an FBA format to work properly. And I'll cover how to do that in a future video, but for now, if you want to learn how, you can check out a new YouTuber named JL. He has a lot of videos about the retro arcade that you might find interesting. It also has support for Game Boy Advance, Famicom, NES, Super Famicom, Super Nintendo, Mega Drive or Genesis, Game Boy, and Game Boy Color. You even have the option to add other emulators for more systems, but I'll cover how to do that in another video. And I did get mine from a company called Tomtop.com. If you're interested in get one, they are on sale right now, but I'm not sure for how long. And here's a look at the console itself. I did get the blue and white version, and as you can see, it does resemble the Neo Geo Mini quite a bit. But the big difference here is you're not just limited to Neo Geo games, you can play games from all kinds of different systems. Here's a look at the back. You got your two USB inputs for your extra controllers, you got an AV or headphone output, you got a micro SD card slot, you got your power input, and you also got the power button. And you got your volume control here on the side. Now my favorite part about this console by far is that micro SD card slot because we can add more games there using up to a 32GB SD card. As far as how the buttons feel, they feel pretty good. They don't feel amazing, but they don't feel cheap either. The joystick feels nice, and it seems to have some good response. But I wouldn't say this is a heavy-duty joystick. If you're really hard on joysticks and that's how you play, then this joystick might not be for you. It also comes with two USB controllers, and the same thing here. I'd say the quality is about middle of the road. They do seem to work as intended, and I don't seem to have any issues with them. And I think that's a huge plus. Coming with these two extra controllers, so you can play two-player when you want without having to pay extra money. And these controllers are also compatible with RetroPie, so you can really get your money's worth. It also comes with an AV out cable, but this is a composite-only cable, so don't expect any HD graphics. There's also a power cable included, but no AC adapter, but this is compatible with most of your phone chargers. All it needs is to be 5V 1A. To make your console portable, you could use a power pack such as this. This is a 5V 1A power pack, so you could use this anywhere. But on the bottom of the console, there's actually a spot for a battery right here. Now this is a special size battery. This is a 18650 3.7V battery. And mine did not come with one of these batteries, but if you're looking to get one, you can search Amazon and Google, and you can find one of these rechargeable with a charger for right around 20 bucks or less. And just for size reference, I'm showing you a AA battery here. This is not compatible, I just wanted to show you that it is quite a bit bigger than a AA. It also comes with a nice colored manual that explains a little bit of everything. It does come with 3,000 built-in games, but you can add even more games via a micro SD card, such as Marvel Superheroes vs. Street Fighter, which is one of my favorite games. Now the emulation is not perfect, and the sound quality is not the greatest, but that being said, this is still a very cool console and very enjoyable to play. The fact that it has 3,000 built-in games to start with, and the option to use a 32GB micro SD card to add even more games, makes this a great deal. There's no jailbreaking involved, it's ready to just add games. Here's a look at the menu layout, and on the top we got about 20 different games we can go through that we have quick access to. Obviously this is not all the games, this is just the games that they decided to put on the main menu. One thing I'd like to mention is the screen seems to be pretty good quality and has very good viewing angles. You can tilt this all the way to the side and still see all the colors, so that's usually a good sign of good screen quality. Here's a look inside the settings folder, and to navigate through all these folders you're going to push A to select and B for the back button. Inside here we can change the language, we can also change the background picture and the sounds it makes when you're selecting different things. And right here it's talking about the internal memory, which is a 16GB image on a micro SD card on the inside of the console, with approximately 400 megabytes left over for game saves and various other things. The next folder over is the file browser, and inside here we can explore the contents of either the internal micro SD card or the external micro SD card. The next folder over is a picture viewer. Now I have heard we can also play movies on this thing, but I have not experimented with that yet, and I'll keep you updated once I check that out. The next one over is going to be a music player. Now the files on here I can't play because there's going to be copyright issues, but they do work. The next folder over, you're going to have quick access to all your games. Inside here, there's going to be simulation games, and that's where all your built-in games are going to be located. So if we open that up, we're going to have multiple different folders inside here. We're going to have Arcade, Game Boy Advance, Super Famicom, Mega Drive, Famicom, Game Boy Color, and Game Boy. Now if you're using a micro SD card, it's very simple to do. All you need to do is format it at FAT32, then create a folder called Game in all lowercase. Then inside that folder, you're going to create all these subfolders named the same as all these. So Arcade, GBA, etc. And for all those subfolders, you want those in lowercase as well. And to access those games on your micro SD card, those are going to be located inside the TF Games folder right here. Alright, the next folder down is going to be Transplant Games, and it's going to be kind of hard to navigate through here because it's going to be in Chinese writing, but there's going to be some experimental emulators inside here for various different systems. And these seem to be in a .dge format, and I have tested out a couple different games for the Commodore 64, and they seem to be working. But I'm not really going to cover any of that in this video, but maybe in a future video I will. Okay, it is time to test out a game. Let's start with Captain Commando. This is an arcade game, so we'll go ahead and let this load. And to add credits for the game, you just push the select button, and then you can add as many credits as you choose. So for the first half of this video, I'm just going to be testing the built-in games. Then on the second half, at the 1440 mark, I will be testing out some Neogeo games on the micro SD card, so if you want to skip to that part, you can whenever you choose. And for this video, I will not be doing any screen captures. I will just be recording the actual gameplay from the arcade screen, so the video and audio quality might not be the best, but I wanted to show you how it looks through my eyes, well, at least as good as I can. As far as the gameplay goes with this game, it seems to be playing really well, and I'm not noticing any type of lag. So if you push start and select at the same time, that's going to bring up our main menu for the game, and inside here we can change different settings, like frame skipping. We can turn that all the way up to 9, but I don't use frame skipping at all. I really don't like that feature. Unless it's auto frame skipping, it's not very handy. You can also change the controller buttons. You can configure those to whatever you want. Then there's also the instant archive where we can save the game. So we have game state saves, which is a really cool feature. To save a game, you just select whatever slot you want by pushing A, and that'll save the game. Then if you want to load that game, you just go to that same slot and then push to the right, and that'll give you an option to load that save game. So by selecting this save game, that's going to take me back to that previous spot where I saved the game. And this feature works with all the built-in games, plus the games you add via the memory card, so this is a really handy feature. To quit a game, you just push start and select, and then navigate down to quit, and that'll take you back to the previous menu you're at, or the main menu. Now let's go ahead and test out another arcade game. This is Street Fighter 2. And this game also seems to play well. Now as far as the audio goes all around, for all the games and all the systems, it does sound a little bit better in person, but like I said earlier, the quality of the audio is not the greatest, but it is acceptable. Now if you want to play 2-player, there's a couple different ways you can do it. You can play with one person on the joystick and one person using a control pad. Or you can both use a control pad. So there's multiple ways to play 2-player, so that's a nice feature. And if you want to hook this up to your TV, you can play the same exact way. You can play with the joystick on one and control pad on the other, or you can both use a control pad. So same features when you're hooked up to a TV. Myself, I just prefer to play this on the miniature arcade screen because I'm not a big fan of the composite output when you hook to a larger TV. Alright, let's try a Game Boy Advance game out. This is Gunstar Heroes by Sega. And this is actually a really cool version of Gunstar Heroes. I like this one. Now this does seem to play really well, but one thing I've noticed with the Game Boy Advance emulation is it seems to be off a little bit with the sound. The sound seems to be about a half-second delayed. Now this might not be a big deal for a lot of games, but certain games, if timing is an issue with the sound, it might give you some problems. But as far as the controls go, those seem to be working well. So let's go ahead and watch the gameplay here for just a few. Okay, let's try another arcade game. This is Final Fight, and this game seems to play really well. So I've tried to record about 20 to 30 seconds of gameplay for each game, so we're going to go ahead and let these play out so you can judge for yourself. Here's Rayman 3 for the Game Boy Advance, and it seems to play great, but we still have the audio issues for all the Game Boy Advance games. We have about a half-second of audio lag. Here's Sonic the Hedgehog 1 for the Mega Drive or the Sega Genesis, and the emulation is pretty good, but I do experience some slowdown once in a while, and you can kind of hear that in the music. Now, something else I should mention, for all the systems and all the emulators, there is some games that are not compatible or do not play well at all. But the percentage of games that do play, I would say, is pretty high. For Super Nintendo, I tested multiple games out, and most of them worked without any issues. But there was a few games like Mortal Kombat 2 that when I tried to play it, I would say is unplayable. As far as a full compatibility list, that'd be hard to come up with because there is thousands and thousands of games to go through. But there is thousands and thousands of games that do work without issues. So these are all the games that are featured on the main menu. So now let's go ahead and scroll down to the games icon down here below, and we'll try out a few more games. So we'll open up the simulation games folder, and we'll start with arcade. Now inside the arcade folder, we have 48 different games we can choose from. So we'll go ahead and pick one to test out. We'll test out X-Men Children of the Atom. And this is another game that also plays well. But like I said earlier, the emulation all across the board for all the systems is not perfect. So if you're looking for perfect emulation, it's not here. But I would say a lot of it is very acceptable and the games are very playable. So we'll go ahead and let this play on here for a few. Alright, let's check out the Game Boy Advance folder, and inside here there is 783 games. Now some of these are Japan games, some of these are American, so there is kind of a mixed match of games in here, but there is plenty of games to choose from. And this is Wario Land, which is a very cool game. If you guys haven't played this, you gotta try it out. Wario's definitely one of the better games for Game Boy Advance. And I know it looks like I don't know how to play, but I'm testing out the lag in the controllers, I'm doing kind of weird stuff in the game, just testing out various things, so the gameplay might look a little weird. Here's another Game Boy Advance game. This is Spyro the Dragon. And out of all the games I tested for the Game Boy Advance, they all seem to play pretty well. I haven't tested all of them, obviously, but the ones I did seem to play good. I just have that audio delay issue. Here is the Super Famicom folder, or the Super Nintendo, and inside here we have 496 games. And again, it's a mixture of foreign games and US games. Here's the Mega Drive and Sega Genesis folder, and inside here we got 622 games. Here's the Famicom and NES folder, and inside here we have 679 games. Here we got Game Boy Color, and we have 166 games inside this folder. Now for the Game Boy Color in the Game Boy, there is some audio issues. I'm noticing there's kind of like a static sound in the background. It just seems to be there for all the games. I'm not sure what's going on with that, but it seems to be something going on with the emulator itself. And here is the regular Game Boy, and we have 207 games inside here. And the same thing here, we have good gameplay, but I have kind of a static sound going on in the background for all the games. Now as far as the static sound, it's really not that big a deal. You really can't hear if there's music playing. The only time you hear it is if you're at a part in the game where there's no music playing or you pause the game. Alright, now it's time to test out the micro SD card, and I talked about earlier how to set that up. We want to format that in FAT32, make a folder called Game in all lowercase, and inside there we're going to have our subfolders with our games inside of them. So now we're going to click on the game icon in the bottom left corner, then scroll down to TF Games, which is going to be the micro SD card. And inside here, I got a bunch of different subfolders. So inside the arcade folder is going to be all my Neogeo games, and I got over 100 plus games inside here. Now remember, these all have to be formatted to a .fba format, or they will not work. And I'm going to try to show you how to do that in a future video, but for now, like I said, you can check out JL on YouTube, and he's got a bunch of videos covering this subject. Here's Metal Slug 1 for Neo Geo, and this game seems to play pretty good. So out of about 140 games that I converted to an FBA format, not all of them are compatible in playing, but a good percentage of them are. What seems to be working the best is games made before 1997. Anything after that seems to be giving me issues with some of the games. But I would like to add, it may just be a formatting issue because some of the games I do not have working, I've seen other people playing them on this system. So I know some of the games are capable, I just haven't figured out a correct way to convert them. And here's Metal Slug 2. Now this game does get a little sluggish at times when there's a bunch happening on the screen at the same time. It's still playable, but I have noticed some slowdown. And here's what happens when I try to load Metal Slug 3, I just get a screen that looks like this. Now, I've seen someone else playing this same exact game, so I think this is just a formatting issue, but I just wanted to show you what I have going. Here's Blazing Star, and this game seems to play great. Here's Fight Fever, another game that seems to play really well. Here's King of Fighters 96. And this is another game I haven't really noticed any issues. And here's King of Fighters 97. When I try to load this game and get to the fighting screen, I get greeted by this black screen. So I don't have this game working yet, but I might be able to figure out a fix for this in the future. Here is King of Monsters, and this game seems to play good. Although I'm not a big fan of this game, but I know it's popular, but just not a fan. And I believe this is Neogeo Drift. And this game seems to play pretty good, not really noticing much issues. Besides the fact that I'm not very good at this game. And here is Shock Troopers, and I was surprised because I don't think I played this game before. It's kind of like Contra meets Commando. And I really like the way this game plays. World Heroes 2. Now this is one of my favorite fighting franchises, and this game seems to play okay, but I do notice some slowdown once in a while. Now I noticed when I played World Heroes 1, the slowdown was a lot worse, and I would say that game is almost unplayable. Here's Savage Ray, and this is another game I don't think I've ever played before, and I'm kind of mad at myself because I've been missing out. Real Bout Fatal Fury. Now I've played this game quite a bit, and the gameplay seems to be good. Ninja Masters. Now that's one thing Neo Geo and SNK did a lot of, was 2D fighting games. As you can see, there's all kinds of them here I'm testing because there is so many of them. And finally, we have a non-fighting game. This is Over Top. The game plays a lot like Neo Geo Drift, but you get exotic sports cars instead. Bomberman. Now this game plays good, but it's also not a very demanding game, but it's still a very fun game. And here is a side-scrolling shooter game, and I apologize because I do not remember the name of this game. I tested so many games out that I forgot what this was. Captain Timaya Day, another game that I have not played, and I was surprised because I thought this was not going to be fun at all, and I was wrong. It's actually quite a bit of fun. And back to fighting games. Breakers. Game seems to play good. Not noticing much wrong. Aggressors of Dark Combat. Now this game seems to be dealing with some slowdown. It's still playable, but the slowdown is noticeable. And the last Neogeo game I'm testing today is Alpha Mission 2, a vertical shooter, and it seems to play good. Okay everyone, it's time for me to go. I hope you liked that video. If you liked that video, please click that like button. If you want to hear more from me, please subscribe. And if you want to help support the channel, you can now find me on Facebook and Patreon. Have yourself a great day, and I'll see you next time.